What up, no? It is another Tuesday. This is Knockouts and Three Counts. And man, do we got a lot of stuff to talk about tonight. You had AEW Forbidden Door. You had UFC 303. You got Money in the Bank coming this weekend. There's a whole lot of stuff to talk about. And who better to do that than the return of our guy, Ryan Mckinnell from Sirius XM Fight Nation. But before we get to that, you know the deal. We got to tell you about our sponsors at Potter's Tree Service. If you're in the need for tree removal, tree trimming, chipping service, log clearing, storm damage cleanup, and now they're even cutting your damn grass. Make sure you check out Potter's Tree Service. Check all the links out in the description. Tell them Knockouts and Three Counts sent you, and I promise you won't need Hacksaw Jim Duggan. Asa and the guys from Potter's Tree Service will get you guys together. Enjoy the show.
This is the Ring of Honor, a.k.a. Shane T, boy, the baddest champion you ever seen, boy.
This is Mr. Anderson.
This is good old JR Jim Ross, and you are listening.
You're listening to Knockouts and Three Counts.
Cover! We got a new world champion!
That might be one of the craziest knockouts I've ever seen in my life.
Knockouts and Three Counts is the podcast, baby! It's the real deal, baby!
Knockouts and Three Counts starts now.
What up, no? It is another Tuesday. Like I said, this is Knockouts and Three Counts. And boys, we got a lot of shit to talk about, so it's great to have the return of our homie Big Mac, Ryan Mckinnell of Sirius XM Fight Nation. My man, how you doing out there in Vegas?
Man, I'm good. I like that little tree service sponsorship you got going on, because as an original Midwest kid, you are entering that time of year, man. That like it is.
You're not wrong.
Yeah. That is that period where all hell is breaking loose. We got tornadoes. We got summer monsoons out here in Vegas, man. I don't know if you were following anything that was going out here during International Fight Week, but I had like a sick pleasure in inviting all my friends and colleagues here when it was like 112. I was like, yeah, guys, come on out. You're going to have a blast. Enjoy this. Because, I hate it. It's 5 months. It's my 18th year in Vegas. It's 5 months of scorching Death Valley heat, right? And you'd think you'd get used to it, but you do not. It does not get any easier. It just gets worse. I just get angrier. So I like kind of trolling everybody as they come in and kind of see how, like, their discomfort pleases me. I guess that's.
He said their discomfort pleases me.
That's hilarious.
No, I'm good, guys. Good to see all you guys holding it down out there in Michigan, doing your thing.
Hell yeah, man! Trying out here. We've been busy with the fight game and all that good stuff. We been talking some bare knuckle stuff. We've got Clarissa Shields is getting ready to fight again here in Detroit, so we'll be covering that soon too. And like I mentioned in the open, man, we've got a lot of shit to talk about between UFC 303 and all that stuff. So before I get to that, J-Bone Corey, how the fuck are you on a Tuesday?
Hey, I'm just listening outside for is it fireworks or gunshots right now? We don't really know. It's that time of the year.
It's also that time of year. Fireworks or gunshots time of year.
Yeah, we just don't know. But if you guys hear,
you guys live at like ground zero for like fun illegal fireworks. Like I'm not promoting, I'm not promoting it. I'm just do as I say, not as I do type of thing. Like Michigan. People don't realize Michigan's almost like its own country. Nobody's coming to you from like the west, the east, or the north. You got the lakes surrounding you. You shoot up. I mean, you got the UP, but no one goes up there. All you got to worry about really is Indiana coming north, and that's where all the illegal fireworks come from. So you're like, you guys are completely shut off from the rest of the world. You can do whatever you want. Scream, and nobody will hear you. That's what I think about when I think of Michigan.
Pretty much, dude. Pretty much.
I mean, to be fair,
and Flint still doesn't have clean drinking water, so let's work on that, please, as well. Like I'm joking about nobody caring about Michigan, but that's like in the back of my brain. It's like, Big Mac, come on now, you know better.
There's definitely some things that could be fixed, but all in all, I definitely love.
How about our roads on all the potholes?
There's some things. There's some things. As somebody who's out on these roads on two wheels, these potholes are great. I can tell you that. That's for sure. Love that when I get bucked off my bike all the time. That's a great feeling.
Right.
But no, doing good, man. Tuesday has come. I mean, getting ready for the holiday festivities. I was just saying before we go live, getting excited to take my kids to one of the local fireworks shows tomorrow. Get up in the park, have the kids there. You know, always a good time. Other than that, today got a little ride in. Had to work on the old lady's truck. Had to do some brake pads. You know, the same old type of bullshit. But you know, other than that, man, like I say, ready.
Tuesday shit, right, J-Bone?
Tuesday shit, man. Yeah, it is. That's a typical Tuesday. Hey, you know what I always say though, as a Michigander, it could be worse. We could be Ohio.
Yeah. You got lakes, you got hills. Some would call. I mean, in Indiana, you call them mountains.
Hey, and we got. And you know what? Now I could say this: we got good football too. So
that's what I'm talking about. Even though I'm still hurt over the way the playoffs happen and what happened.
Okay, we're coming back strong, baby.
Don't forget, U of M is the one holding the championship right now. Everybody's all gun ho because the Lions are actually good again.
My boy's coming for you though, Mr. Spicy, Caleb Williams with his style tips and his golden arm. That's my man. I hope he dumps all over the NFC North. I hope he makes all the homophobe Bears fans, you know what I'm saying? Because like there's a lot of homophobes in America, right? Like I hope he just gets so spicy. He wins like 3 Super Bowls. So all those homophobic Bears fans like have to like him and come around. They'll be doing like they'll be like rawr. They'll be painting their nails. He could change, I mean, maybe not change the world, but he could do something for the culture. And I'm here for I want the winning. But if like, you know, taking the homophobes down a peg or two along the way, if he can manage to do that, boy, I am
it's funny too because like Chicago's traditionally known for like their grit and like getting dirty and being bloody and like, you know what I mean. So it's just funny. That's funny.
It's great. It's great.
I can hear it now already. I don't like that boy's fingernails, but man, he can play some ball.
He can sure toss a football, boy. Let me tell you, absolutely. Hey,
ring the bell. Score one for Corey. If you haven't gotten your T-shirt yet, make sure you get one of those at millions.com or out of the back of my truck. But that's a story for another time. We got more of them bitches on hand. So if you're going to be in Cleveland for SummerSlam, holla at your boy. But with that being said, man, like we said, there's a lot of stuff going on with 4th of July. But, dude, you had quite the entertaining and exciting week for yourself. So before we get to UFC 303, talk to me about UFC X, man, and some of the interviews you guys got to do there and your whole UFC 303 experience, man.
Yeah, I mean, it was great. Sirius XM was on hand for all the UFC X, that convention center that they do out here. I mean, it started really with the expo and the whole, I mean, I think it was like UFC 100. Now, it wasn't UFC branded. It was kind of like MMA Expo. It was sort of a celebration of it, but UFC has turned into over many years. Like 10 years they've been doing it at various locations. They've just turned it into this behemoth. Autograph, all things that were going on throughout that 3-4 day, sort of celebration here. I mean, there's nothing like it. Guys, they don't do it one year. They do it in one place. It's in Las Vegas. So for a lot of folks, it's a this, sort of event. So it goes obviously coincide. It was supposed to be the return of McGregor. Obviously, we didn't get that, but the buzz was palpable. The turnout was great. Fight Nation was out in droves. The crew, our team back in New York and everybody that was actually, boots on the ground in Las Vegas did awesome, man. We had I think we did like over 20 interviews. Everyone from Sean Strickland to Hanato Moicano, Nate Landwehr, who was my first time talking to Nate. Like that dude was like the Paul Wall of mixed martial arts. Like his vibes and his just total delivery. Absolutely enjoyed the hell out of that. I got outside of the heat. I got nothing to complain about. I actually had to leave my house for 3 days. Normally there's this like my hibernating bear during when all this shit's going down, but it was good, man. The turnout was good. The shows were great. It's always cool too. I don't know. I know there's a lot of more people who work remotely and deal, especially post-COVID with everything that's going on, but it isn't often that I get to see my team, people that I've worked with for 7, 8, 9 years in some cases. So it's good to get them out here and to actually, hang out and have some fun, even with RJ Clifford. And I'll tell you, behind the curtain, Friday night we went out, and that was a mistake. Yeah, I mean, I wanted to spend time with my people that I haven't seen in a while, but I feel like I have to be a good host, and it's my city. You got to, show up and hang out until everyone else is done. And I had a show to do Saturday morning. That was the night we did the pre-show, or the day we did the pre-show. And the night before, we spent 6 hours at the same blackjack table.
He was talking about that. I heard him talk about that on MMA Today, too.
They were talking about it. I didn't hear about this. They were talking about it on MMA Today?
Yes, they did. He was talking about being at the blackjack table, and then he was having a good run on the blackjack table.
Yeah, are you talking about RJ?
Yes.
Yeah, he left like a coward at midnight. He won $1,000. All right. He won $1,000 and he left at midnight. Now, RJ's usually the guy, especially if he wins. I've had it be 4:30 in the morning and a car shows up. I'm like, what's the car for? He's like, we're going to the strip club. Like, the sun is coming up. We don't do this now. We plan a couple hours before. So him leaving at midnight, $1,000 up, my tinfoil hat went on. I was like, he's got to be doing something nefarious. This makes no sense. I'm the one that's got a show tomorrow. Why am I, watching him walk? But even then, that was midnight. We didn't leave till 4:30. And after many Jameson and Gingers later, and more money being won, again, at the same table, which never happens, I woke up. I think I got about 6 hours, but man, I was supposed to meet Andreas and Marcus for brunch. I had to postpone that. I needed every hour leading up to that Saturday show that I got. But we did it. We crushed it. The ramifications of Friday were not felt on Saturday. We're true professionals. And the Fight Nation team proved that. I can't believe they talked about that on the air, though.
That's hilarious. Well, speaking of that, dude, I gotta ask you about that. I mean, with you being right in the thick of it, obviously this it is probably the most switched around MMA card I think I've ever really seen in my time of watching, and then to be covering that and it being right in the thick of it. Talk to me about what the vibe was like for UFC 303. Were the fans still as hype as maybe you would expect them to, or do you think how much of the loss of the Conor McGregor fight do you think it took out of the air of International Fight Week?
A lot, because I've covered the majority of McGregor fights, right? And there's just nothing like it. It's a complete spectacle. And there's a lot of people that come for a McGregor fight week that aren't mixed martial arts fans. They're McGregor fans. Yeah. They don't know who Israel Adesanya is. They don't know who Alex Pereira is. They might know who Sean O'Malley is, maybe, but they probably don't. They probably don't know anybody aside from Conor McGregor and the guy he's supposed to fight. I was talking to a guy at the hotel bar before that Friday night. It was that Friday night, but it was before everything got confusing. And he was like visiting. He was helping his daughter move or doing something. But he's like, yeah, it's my first time to Vegas. And he's like, McGregor's fighting tomorrow, right? We were like, nah, man. So you know what I mean? It was like people still hadn't fully figured out that McGregor. I mean, obviously he wasn't in for the fight. I'm just saying the buzz around town was still like, the McGregor hangover, the McGregor buzz, whatever you want to call it. It's palpable. And losing something like that, it's massive. It's massive for the UFC. It's massive for everybody. It's a big deal, but I think the UFC did a really good job, all things considered, with 2 weeks essentially notice to put together this fight card. Obviously, we thought Ortega and Lopez was going to be a fight. You talk about switches. We've never seen anything like Dan Ige getting called out of the massage room on a couple hours driving down the street, just cruising on over with Eric Nixick. Well, Eric Nixick was already there, but you know what I mean? Like the whole way that played out. But I think if you're going to write a story, like if you're the UFC and you could have scripted it, I don't think you could have written it any better than you did by getting an Alex Pereira, essentially not a first round knockout, but pretty damn close highlight reel knockout to add on to what has been the most incredible 12 months I've ever seen in mixed martial arts history. The only thing that rivals it is McGregor, which is kind of fitting that he's the one that replaced McGregor, even though he might have had a broken toe. I mean, he went into his last fight with broken toes, and he goes into this, essentially off the couch against a dangerous opponent and keeps adding to this history that he's able to just keep just defying expectations. Like, you're not supposed to be doing what Poatan is doing, and I don't know what the limit is. And that's what's really cool, is I don't know where it's going to go. I could have never thought it was going to get to obviously what we're talking about right now, right? So what's next is endlessly intriguing for me. But as you asked me about the fallout of McGregor and how it affected the week, yes, it affected the week, but it's only because you're comparing it to the thing that you never see. Right? Like, there are McGregor fights and events, and that's the only thing you compare them to. There is nothing like it, and there may never be anything like it in our lifetime again. I don't know. I just never thought the sport would get this big, so I never thought we'd see a McGregor. Now, are we going to see someone who's bigger than McGregor? Whew. I mean, since I never thought we'd get here, I can't say that, but I can unequivocally say right now, there is nothing bigger. There's nothing to compare it to. So trying to compare 303 to what it would have meant to having McGregor in there, it's just not really fair. It was still an incredible event. You know what I mean? And again, history was on the line. Poatan was doing what he was doing. The fight card was good enough. I think it was saved, not just by Perlea coming in, but the way he finished the fight as well. Because if they don't have that main event play out the way it does, it was a bit of a stinker of a card. It was fine, but it just didn't have that punch. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Totally feel that. J-Bone, Corey, how are you guys feeling about all these changes that we saw at UFC 303? Because for me, I'm with Big Mac for the most part, as far as obviously once you remove a name like McGregor, it's kind of hard to be able to get it on that same playing field. So I think to directly compare it to a McGregor card, I could totally see why, like, it may not have as much hype, as much pomp and circumstance. But to your point, I mean, for what we had left, I think they made the chicken salad out of chicken shit. I think it was still a fun and a good card. It's interesting, though, because now the question remains, so now that we've made it out of this fight, do we even see Conor fight now? And if he does, is it still going to be against Michael Chandler? Because I've heard people saying that, they might move from that matchup. So there's a lot of questions that come out of that one. But how are you guys feeling when you saw all these switches, huh?
On my end, I didn't think it. I mean, personally, I'm not as Conor crazy as the rest of the world. I completely understand what you're saying, where it's like it just brings a different buzz. And like my neighbor Jesse, good friend of mine, grew up with. He only really asked me about 2 or 3 guys, like you said, O'Malley, Conor. Those are like the main two that if those two are fighting, he'll at least throw it in a conversation, And that being said,
shout out to Asa and Potter's Tree Service. He says he'll believe it when he sees it.
I mean, that's where you have to be, right? That's where you have to be at this point.
Yeah, but I think we've seen him put that much work into it and getting ready and stuff. I think he make the right move by pulling. His toe looked fucking purple, and that was 2 weeks before the event. So, I mean, unless he's showing pictures from a month previous, who knows how they show, when they show. But that being said, I can completely understand why you wouldn't want to go out there when you can't even properly plant on one of your feet. That being said, the whole Poatan stepping up and stuff like that, I mean, to your point, we haven't seen a rise like that in a very long time. For him to just be able to continue to run through the divisions and just, I mean, claim the 185 title, then lose to Izzy, but then still come out kind of on top of the whole thing with Izzy. I mean, right now he's by far the bigger star, especially with Izzy.
Yeah.
Maybe if he gets this win coming up against Duplessis, things might change a little bit, but I don't even think that's necessarily the case.
No, Poatan's more likable too. Adesanya's hurting himself in the likability factor. He just is, You're going to have that issue when you're outspoken and you're brash and you're cocky and you say big, loud, boisterous stuff. When you fall, people are going to pile on you, and then it's going to take you even more work to get back, to get some of that good standing and to get that momentum. Here's the thing that I was thinking about last week when they announced the fight, or when they announced Riyadh Season being the official sponsor of the Sphere at UFC 306, right? All I could think about was the Saudis offering up $30 million to have Conor McGregor pull out of the fight so they could get him at the Sphere. Because
No.
and then
Look,
Andreas Hale was like, well, what about the toe? And I quoted John Goodman from Big Lebowski. You want a toe? I can get you a toe. You might not like how I get it. You might I can get you a toe.
Yeah.
You know, it's just a picture. And maybe it's my broken conspiratorial mind. I mean, I've been in this sport for so long. But if the Saudis want something, the Saudis get it. You're looking at it with the WWE and Crown Jewel, and now they want a Royal Rumble. They took over golf. If they wanted to buy the NFL, they could. Money is not real. It's not real to them. They have more of it than you could possibly imagine. And if they want to spend it on something, including we want Conor McGregor, you don't think that they could pay for that to happen? And then the UFC could just say, I mean, there's nothing in place, right, to keep that from happening. Now, that's not what happened. I have no inside information. I'm just a broken person who doesn't believe anything he hears. That's all.
That being said, it is very, 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 very plausible.
It's a good point.
And also, let's not kid ourselves. You want to see Max Holloway, Conor McGregor too for the BMF title at the Sphere? Or you want to see him fight Michael Chandler? It's a no-brainer.
Yeah.
It's a no-brainer from a money standpoint, from a competitive standpoint, from an interest standpoint. It is the fight that you make. And I don't even care if it's the Sphere, which, I mean, that would also make a lot of sense. But McGregor and Holloway is the fight to make, especially if it's McGregor's last fight. Give the rub to Max Holloway. He deserves it. Michael Chandler has done nothing, relatively nothing, to deserve a McGregor fight. He has.
Dude, but think about what you just said. That was my whole thought, like, going into this fight. Like, if somehow it doesn't end up being Chandler, like, holy shit, that guy has, like, put himself on the sidelines now for, like, 2 years waiting for this. And if after all this he doesn't end up getting that fight, man, talk about a kick in the balls. Think about all the money he missed out on fights. Now, I understand why you did it, because you're going to unarguably make more money fighting Conor McGregor than you're going to fight anybody else in the UFC. But, man, if he waited around all that time and it don't happen.
That's more an indictment on the sport, Dana White, and the issue of fighter pay. I mean, they just were ordered by a court to pay $385 million to former fighters. The judge came back and said, actually, that's not enough. Let's revisit that, because he valued it at $800 million to $1.2 billion, and what they should have paid off. Chandler did that because he's thirsty and he's broke. And he's been fighting for these blood merchants for so long that when he gets an actual fight purse dangled in front of him, he's willing to put his career completely on hold during his prime years on the hopes that he might get a fight against a guy who can actually make some money. The fact is they should all be making money. Look at the news that came out at UFC 303 that Alex Pereira made a $303,000 bonus. And the community was like, oh, yes, Dana White, UFC, how nice of you to give this man $300,000 when he just saved your fucking card with a $17 million gate, kept it on pay-per-view for ESPN, so they're happy, right? And he also did that at UFC 300. And we're bending over backwards and clapping like seals because he got $303,000. It is a joke. This sport is a joke. Michael Chandler waiting for Conor McGregor is a joke. And I'm not trying to be negative. I've covered this sport for 17 years. It's given me a lot in my life. I love this sport. I love fighting. I love the athletes. But if you don't see that and you can't acknowledge how broken it is, I can't help you, and you're part of the problem.
Yeah, for anybody that may be curious, that is of the interest of what he was just talking about, the Weighing In podcast with Big John and Josh
Thompson.
Josh Thompson. I don't know why his name's slipping my head at the moment. They had a really good episode on it. I can't think of the gentleman's name that they had on it, but they had a full breakdown of what's
probably
going
John
on.
Nash, the same guy we use on Sirius XM.
Yep, it was John Nash. That being said, they had a really good full breakdown of what you may expect, what has come to this point, what has led to this point, and kind of the breakdown of what we may expect from the where we're at, essentially.
It's crazy. That's crazy to me, though. The fighter pay, like we've been talking about this for years.
Yeah,
fighter pay, and it's still it's nowhere near where we need it to be.
It's really hard. I mean, if we're going in on that topic, because I mean the card in general was fun, but I mean this is more fun for me to talk about because this is something I feel like really does need to be changed in the sport. We've seen that there's no competitor that can actually be profitable. And that's such a big issue when you're talking about fighter pay, because what that ends up being is everybody that wants to get them eyeballs and get actual potential wealth out of this dangerous career, they all kind of turn tail and go to the UFC no matter what, because they're the highest dollar, they're the most eyeballs, no matter what.
Right.
And even if they are underpaying their guys, to your point, to everybody's point, they're underpaying their guys. It's still the most competitive and probably best potential for them in their future.
Listen,
so it's
why bench players are getting $22 million a year in the NBA. It's why backup quarterbacks are getting $13.5 million. You know what I mean? It's revenue share and it's unionization. The UFC gets hundreds of millions of dollars from ESPN on these streaming rights deals. This event at UFC 303 did over 15 million. Well, I mean, the original Conor McGregor gate was 20 million, and it was the biggest in the history of the company. You know what I mean? And it's not going down to the fighters, and that's part of what the lawsuit was about. And now that they've settled, there's I'm not saying there's nothing they can do, but there probably won't be a change on the horizon. They get 18% roughly of the revenue that comes back, whereas obviously these other organizations and sports, it's closer to 50%. And it's criminal, and it's been judged to be criminal. It's like we're not,
it's not just speculation anymore. This actually went to court.
Yeah, it's really, really unfortunate. And then the ripple effects of it they're gigantic, because it's everything that we're talking about. And then it's also like, and I say this all the time, if you're a young athlete, because I think there are great fighters out there, potential fighters that, maybe they fail out of D1, or they don't make it to the NFL like they would like, or they're like these corners and these DNs, whatever, right? But if you're that, and you're looking at a viable way to continue your athletics, or you're just growing up and you want to be a fighter and you think it's the coolest fucking thing in the world and you can't wait to be a UFC champion, then you find out what you have to go through to get there. And then even if you get there, you're Francis Ngannou and you're the scariest man in the world and you're the heavyweight champion, and you're like, hey, I just want to go fight this guy so I can get some actual money. And they're like, no, you have to leave. And he's like, well, fine, I will, because your company's a joke. Like, you're going to go through all that to get to be the greatest fighter of your generation, and nobody cares. Why would you even start? And that's my worry. 20 years from now, we're going to have Dana White Contender Series guys that they're not, these people aren't champions. They tell you they're champions. They make you think Jamal Hill, no disrespect to Michigan, sorry, you think he's
I was going to say, dog, damn.
Sorry. You think he's a light heavyweight champion? You think he's the best fighter in the world? Absolutely not. And that's what's unfortunate, is they're going to tell you these fighters are great, and sometimes they are and sometimes they're not. But what I want is 20 years from now, I want the baddest motherfuckers fighting in the UFC and fighting in mixed martial arts, the very best athletes that can do shit that we can't even think of right now. Like, oh my God, you thought Anderson Silva was good? Wait till you get the child of Demetrius Johnson, Anderson Silva, and insert fighter here, right? I want the hybrids. I want the next generation. It's going to be hard to do that when everyone's laughing at you.
True.
Yeah.
Spitting facts over here, man.
Anybody with the ESPN app installed has got it. That's a deep MMA fan, has to be just rolling around a little bit. Just seeing some of these contracts that have been going out with NBA free agency right now. And to your point, like,
I'm happy. I'm happy for them.
I'm not.
Get the money. Yeah.
I'm not even arguing necessarily against the NBA or anything like that, but just seeing the amount of money that's being thrown around for some of these players that I watch the NBA religiously. I'm a big NBA fan. And that being said, I know a lot of these players ain't worth, damn near.
Well, they are, because like you said, you're obsessed and you watch, you support, and there's so many like you. So the money's there. It's just the rising tide lifts all ships, and they get paid. Like, dude, look at the NBA deal that they just redid. Why we're not getting inside the NBA anymore, and why Turner didn't get the bid, right? It's like, I mean, they have like 3 different deals. There's like an Amazon deal and an NBC deal, and there's like another deal. But and this is a year. It's like $2.1 billion a year on this split broadcasting rights. And then that goes back down to the athletes. Like, that's amazing. And soon that's going to start happening in MMA, and it's all going to go to Dana White and TKO and these rich corporate jerk-offs that do not care. They don't care. They're going to take all of the money. There's a reason minimum wage exists. It's because if they could pay us less, they would. Now, minimum wage is a joke. I'm just saying, imagine what it would be like if we didn't have that. Imagine if you didn't have the union at the post office. Imagine if all the workers
I mean, my
out there
union doesn't
listening-
do a whole lot, but that's a story for another time.
They do a whole lot more than
They
not
would do
having
a whole lot more to you if it wasn't for them. That's for
Yeah,
sure.
imagine if you didn't have that.
I agree. Trust me, I got target number one.
That small sliver, that modicum of a safety net that you have, the UFC fighters would kill for something like that. And that's where we're at.
Oh, yeah.
We're just everyone's begging for scraps. And and to your guys' point, it's one of the more important stories. It's not the only story. There's so much. I mean, God. We could talk about Peloton and what he did for an hour and how insane it is. And this story.
Well, and that's what I wanted to get into. There's so many side stories going out of this one, dude. Like who was the big winners? Who were the big losers? Let's talk about some of what we saw with some of these guys and girls coming off of UFC 303. Also, before we get to that, shout out to our guy Andreas Hale, man. The interview y'all had with Dan Ige today was dope as shit. And Michelle Watterson as well. Shout out to her on a dope career. I still remember watching her knock chicks out on fucking Bully Beatdown. So, man. Shout out to the Karate Hottie. But with that being said.
One more real quick, since you're giving a shout out to people that are making their exits. One that I feel like is falling so far under the radar is Andre Arlovsky.
Yeah.
Everybody's
shout out to the Pitbull.
Yeah, they didn't give him the send out or nothing like that. I know his fight was boring. I get it. I understand. But you know,
he had 60 fucking fights in the UFC, man.
Yeah.
Give that guy his fucking credit.
You know, I feel like at least I have to. If
for sure.
He's not going to give him any type of love on the send out, and then they're just going to kind of shuffle him under the rug and say his contract's up.
Shout out to the Pitbull for sure. Although I still stick by what I've said for years. He should have always just come out to the Pitbull song. Like, you know what song I'm talking about? Like, if he'd have just come out to the Pitbull song every time for his fight song, like that shit would have been dope. But definitely shout out to the Pitbull. No, you're straight. You're good. No, it's definitely
one of the most popular fighters in
right.
our generation. In 2005, it was Tito Ortiz, Chuck Liddell, and him.
And he was one of the youngest heavyweight champs of all time, too.
But also, if you're a fighter, just look at that and use that as an example. You can be one of the most popular champions, highest paid, biggest characters, whatever the case may be. You can fight 20 years for that company, give absolutely everything. And then when you're gone, it's Dana White saying he's fought his last fight. They don't say anything nice about him. No video package, no send off, no acknowledgement of what he's done. They do not care about you. So if they don't think if they don't care about their fighters and people like Andre Arlovsky, do you genuinely think they care about you, the fan? Do you really think they're giving you the best? I promise you they're not. They don't care about you. The fan fest, all that stuff, it's all about money. It's all about nation building. It is not altruistic. They do not care.
Damn you.
Hard to argue when it comes to the UFC, but dude, let's talk about some of these storylines outside of here. The first one that jumps out to me, man, you've heard everybody and their mom talk about this guy. This guy runs his mouth all the time. He's always in the news because either the stuff he says or the shit his wife says and everything in between that. After what we saw between Ian Gary and MVP, what's next for Ian Gary? How do you think that this plays for him? Because it wasn't the most entertaining of performances, and a lot of people are saying that they think MVP won as it went to a decision like that. Big Mac, what'd you think of what we saw from Ian Machado and Gary?
I mean, in a situation like Ian Gary, I think you have to block out the noise and the absurdity, right? Like your feelings about him. He's interesting. He's not afraid, so I like that. You know, he's more genuine and real than like a Henry Cejudo or a Colby Covington, who I think are very much putting on sticks, and I don't believe them. I think Gary's finding his way. But in terms of the fight, which is really the only thing I care about, it's a good win. I could see how you think MVP won. I would have no problem with that. Fact is he didn't. Ian Gary did, and he solved a really difficult puzzle. You know, I know he made a lot of promises, and he was going to do this, and he was going to starch him, and he was going to – all the things that he said, they're immaterial. It's a really hard fight to win. I think
Yeah.
I would hope that most UFC fans are aware of MVP Michael Page and what he's capable of, but I think they're not. I think there's a lot of fighters out there that he's still relatively new. He's not new to me. He's not new to you guys. He's one of the most devastating strikers that I've ever seen. I mean, what he did to Cyborg still.
Oh yeah,
It's one of the worst things I've ever seen ever in sports, period. Not even just fighting, like, NFL, anything. Like they hit on Antonio Brown. There's just moments that just, jump off the page where you're like, my God, that was Vontez Perfect on Antonio Brown, right? Like there's just things that happen where you're like, just catastrophic. MVP has catastrophic finishing ability, and Ian Gary had to be aware of that. So I like the performance, and obviously whatever's next is going to be a massive step up in competition. I think the thing that makes the most sense is Colby Covington, but Covington's a goofball, and I have no idea what his motivations are. I think he's perfectly fine doing random podcasts, trying to stay relevant and sling insults, but his shine is wearing so thin at this point that he's got maybe a year to do something and to have a fight that matters, to keep people interested. And then he's just, I think people are already losing interest because they're caught on to just how boring he is inside the cage and how his shtick is just, it's tiresome, man. It's been years. It's been years of just cringe. It's just,
I can't argue that. I mean, dude, to be honest, I think Colby's run is definitely getting near the end of its end. I think the best part of a Colby Covington, Ian Gary fight is just the shit talking that they're going to do before they get
be entertaining.
But
it'll be entertaining up to it.
Yep. And whatever happens after that. I mean, if Covington is able to go out there and take out an undefeated Gary, then he has some equity to run his mouth, and his words mean a little bit more.
Yeah.
And if Gary wins, well, then it's the end of Colby Covington as we know it, and Gary probably gets a title shot. And for the people that want that to happen, then they get to cheer that on. The people that want to see Gary get his ass kicked probably will, because whoever's the champion, most likely Leon Edwards, we'll see. Ain't going to be an easy fight. But, we found out a little bit more about Ian Gary, and I think if you're an Ian Gary fan, it's a positive. He's not going to force anything. Yeah. It was a mature performance. It was a boring performance in a lot of ways. It wasn't what he had promised, but he got the win, and that is all that matters, because he keeps that undefeated record. And people will say what they want. 15-0 is 15-0. 14-0 is 14-0, whatever it is. Yeah.
I think that goes back to what we expected. Like, as MMA fans and the basic MMA fan, they want fireworks, and it's not going to happen all the time. There's a reason. There's a design behind your strategy. It's mixed martial arts, right? He was fighting Venom Page. That is a very, very dangerous dude.
Yeah, absolutely.
So for him to be mature and go in there with the strategy, of course, that's the way you should have done it. Because if he'd have rushed in there, we'd be talking a whole different story. He's not ready. He's not ready for that type of fight. So I think he did exactly what he needed to do. And next up should be Colby Covington. I'd love to see the build up for that fight. And honestly, I think Gary is going to dust him if that happens. But that's just my opinion, and that's why I have it. That's why we got the platform to talk about it, baby.
I think if that's a matchup they do make, it'll be very interesting. Both, like you said, both in the lead up, and I do think the fight itself could be very interesting to see if Ian Gary is able to deal with the potential takedowns. Colby does bring the pressure when he brings it. Apparently not against Leon Edwards in a title bout, but normally he brings the pressure, and so I feel like the bout could be entertaining. That being said, I feel like for Ian Gary, he did a really good job in this one, and just the fact that he felt the fact that he was getting outstruck in round 2 and then came out but much more prepared in round 3, did what he needed to do, whether that was pulling essentially guard. It wasn't pulling guard, but allowing himself to be on bottom and just kind of wrestle position to then get on top and actually control position for a little bit, land some good shots. Like you say, it was a very mature performance. He realized maybe I wasn't able to keep up with MVP in the striking. Maybe I would get clipped in that 3rd round if I kept trying to play this game with him. Yeah. So I'm going to do what I need to do to continue to maintain this undefeated record. So,
and he's not a guy you want to sit there and strike with either, and he knows that. That guy could end your night just like that. We've seen it. And he's nothing new in the MMA world. So I think there was a smart fight, man. Mature fight. I think that was the best way to put it, is a mature fight. Yeah, it was very.
There was a couple moments in that 2nd round where it looked like he was in some real danger. Like, it wasn't just like, that was close. It was like, oh, that was like, dude, if you get caught against the cage and you just happen to slip your hand 1 inch, you were just about to get knocked out right there.
Yeah.
So
MVP
like
is as good as it gets, man.
Yeah,
Especially in the striking department. So
yeah.
Yeah.
As for what's next, I do agree. I probably think the Colby Covington's the most interesting matchup that they have right now that's not already booked in the upper echelon of 170.
Plus they got history. You know, he's running his mouth. They're talking about each other. It almost makes too much sense not to make the fight. But
yeah, I agree.
We'll see how it plays out.
I know Kyle wanted to talk about this. He'll probably touch on it when he gets back. But Anthony Smith, Roman Dolidze.
That one, dude.
Decision winner. What do you guys think next? What's next for Anthony Smith now?
Dude, that one hurt so bad as a freaking Lionheart
I knew you were going to say it, Corey.
Dude, that one fucking hurt, dude. I mean, like, I understand it was stepping in on short notice. I understand, like, you know, potential power puncher on the other side, so you got to really watch out and stuff. He didn't try to do shit. He just played along and played into the dance. They talked about it on the broadcast, how these guys have sparred. It was a fucking sparring match that Anthony Smith didn't even try to win. He tried in the last maybe like minute of the third round, but even then it wasn't enough. Even then the pressure wasn't enough. You could see he was throwing his shots, but it was far too friendly of a fucking performance, man. That one hurt my feelings so bad.
And there's the problem. You know, I blame the UFC. You know, you're making these late replacement fights, and you try to get Oldberg in, and while he's out, now you get a guy that, you know, you're gonna throw two, you know, people that like each other in a cage together. They both got the history. You know, Eric Nixick is a friend to both of them. You're not gonna fight a person like that the same way you're gonna fight. And you can say, oh well, it's your job to fight, and you can spit all the Dana White rhetoric that you want. Well, that's not the reality. You know what I mean? The reality is you can't take emotion out of fighting. And that it definitely played like a sparring session. You know, they both they incentivize you to do stuff like this. You know, I hope they got their money because it hurts both of their careers. You know, it just does. I mean, how much? I don't think it's catastrophic or anything, but it leaves a bad taste in your mouth. It was the worst fight on the card. It was on the pay-per-view portion of the card that people paid for. It was a big event. You know, people don't know that. People watching at a bar don't know that. McGregor fans watching clearly don't know that. They just think those two fighters suck and they pity patted for 15 minutes. And they have if they're on an ABC card or they're a co-main event, they're going to be like, oh man, this guy, I just saw him fight 6 months ago. He's a bum. You know what I mean? Yeah. It's just bad. It's just bad optics. It's just bad optics. I wasn't hard on it. I didn't think one way or the other. I knew why it happened. I knew why it looked like that. I've seen it happen 100 times. I'll see it happen 100 times more. Yeah, it was unfortunate though.
I seen Twitter kind of blow up a little bit when Dolidze did the little dance that he was doing at the. It was like, oh man, that was like out of that whole fight. That was the thing that was being retweeted the most. You know, that was the most talked about thing.
So, because it was also infuriating. You're sitting there like having fun and slapping hands and doing little dances and memeing yourself up, and you know, it's on one of the biggest fight cards of the year. And Anthony Smith was at the presser the week before or the week of, you know, getting asked about, you know, being able to slip in maybe late replacement for a title shot or whatever the case may be. It's just all comical. It's a bad look, unfortunately. So I felt for both fighters because they should have never been in that place. They were trying to be company men. They were trying to save the card. They were trying to go out and do the right thing, and you know, it backfired.
Yeah. Yet again, such a big fan of Anthony Smith. Watch him and Bisping's podcast all the time. He had just done this big pledge basically on the show saying, I'm done taking short notice fights. I'm at the point in my career where I need to actually game plan these guys and really make up maybe some deficits in the matchups and stuff like that so that I can, you know, prosper in these. And to your point, I don't have long left. In his words, I'm not chasing the shot, but I know that I'm potentially close. There isn't a lot of guys in the way, and if I can just string one or two together,
he'll never get it. There's nothing he can do. There is nothing he can do that will ever get that shot back. So you just lost it.
Yeah,
for nothing.
For just another fight. All because I mean, to your point, these guys should be getting paid better. He's a former title contender himself, but I mean, it's literally just you took that fight because you thought in his words, I trained with Jamal Hill for like 2 weeks before he had to pull out, so I thought I would be good for a Carlos Alberg fight.
Yeah.
And then once the matchup gets changed up, and now to your point, you're fighting somebody you're friends with, essentially, or at least friendly with.
Yeah.
It's like, I get you're already on the card. People are already expecting you to fight. You're already expecting to get a payday and stuff like that. But I mean,
it turned into a sparring match, like you said.
Yeah,
it never comes back to help you. Being a bootlicker for the UFC never helps. You better be Sean Strickland. You better be Colby Covington. And I know I'm using two people that would seemingly be company men, but they're not. They wait. And they read the room and they pick their spots. And Conor McGregor, same way. Sean O'Malley coming off the Contender Series. Those first couple fights, he was like, yo, these contracts are a joke. I'm not just fighting anybody. We'll see. Like, he was very vocal about that. You know what I mean? Strickland's been vocal about how they're taking advantage of. Then he always tries to, give you, preface it. Well, that's just America these days and everybody's jobs suck. It's like, no, focus on the UFC. They're the one paying you. It is a joke. You know what I mean? And now he's saying, I'm waiting. Screw Whitaker. I'm waiting. Good. Yeah. That's what you should be saying. Don't ever do these people favors. They will never do you favors. Look at Andrei Arlovsky.
Yeah.
20 years, man. He doesn't even get a video package. He gets Dana White essentially saying, yeah, he's gone next. It's like, what? Why would you ever bend over backwards for this company like Anthony Smith has done? You know what I mean? What are they going to give you $100,000 locker room bonus? Okay, if that's worth it to you, if that's worth selling your soul and potential future title shots or respect, go ahead. But at least know what you're getting into before you get into this sport. And I fear that, I don't know how many do. I felt bad for Anthony Roman.
In his regard, he at least has the desk job and stuff like that.
For now.
So maybe, for now. Exactly.
But that's based on popularity and likability and people that want to watch you. Yeah. If you keep getting booed and people keep telling you suck and you keep looking like a bum, they don't want bums on TV talking about the sport. You want people that are viable, legit, credible people that are what I did and what I've done. The only thing that Anthony Smith has is that I fought John Jones to a close decision. But now everybody thinks that John Jones is ducking Tom Aspinall and everyone's revising history and the division wasn't that tough. And what has John Jones done? MMA fans are stupid. And they have no sense of respect for history. They don't. It's what have you done for me now lately? Because people have short memories and people don't like to think or remember or learn or pay attention. And that's the unfortunate reality.
Well, that's as good a way as any to kind of talk about one of the other fights that we had there, because I was listening to everything that was going on while I was taking care of some stuff. But, I mean, dude, that was my whole thing with that fight going into it. I feel like it looked like a glorified sparring match. You know, you heard Eric Nixick say it, that he got the call from Anthony to tell him that he was fighting one of his guys. Like this whole, just the way that all that stuff bounced around. And, I mean, then that takes you to the other opposite end of the spectrum with what happened with Dan Ige. I mean, same coach, you heard Eric Nixick talking about it and talking about how they all just, can you go to the gym and grab my cup? And Dan Ige is getting up off a massage table to step in and take this fight. And then that's not even talking about the other side of it with Diego Lopez. Diego Lopez is going in from, he's going in on starting at 145. Then they go up to 155. Then we get a whole nother. Opponent. I hope that in this case it ends up being something where both these guys end up making good out of it. From what I hear, it looks like Dan Ige is looking at maybe a fight at the Sphere next, and then Diego Lopez, from what it sounds like, is supposed to get another top contender. But dude, in all the years I've watched fighting, I don't think I can ever remember a time where somebody came in on a day's notice.
Yeah, no, not a day's. I mean, the day, on hours notice, the governor of Nevada had to be called. And again, this isn't. I'm not gonna. I'm sorry, I can't celebrate the UFC here or give them a pat on the back. That's a joke. They did that because they knew they couldn't lose that fight. If they lost that fight, Anthony Smith and Roman Dolidze is the co-main event, and this card is trash. And they are in fear of, like, how does anybody trust us? Like, how are you going to believe? First of all, how can anyone buy tickets in advance? Like, would you ever, if you're a paying fan, hear about a fight? Like, if they booked the Sphere right now and said it's Conor McGregor versus Max Holloway, would you buy your tickets now? If you did, you're an idiot. Because all of these cards fall apart. This one fell apart 2 weeks, 24 hours, 48 hours, 24 hours. At every different point, this card fell apart. Now, credit to Diego Lopez and Dan Ige, because that was an awesome fight. And those are two very, very bad dudes. But the reason we've never seen like anything like this before is because we haven't seen a card like 303 before. You would have had an upheaval, a mini riot. People would have been up in arms, and buyer confidence, would have definitely taken a hit. So the UFC had to scramble to put on a fight, and luckily Dan Ige is crazy, and he lives in Las Vegas. And
luckily, right there,
you can make that fight happen. It was awesome. They definitely should both be rewarded with big fights at the Sphere, unquestionably. And I was very, very happy for them, and I was very happy for Dan Ige, because he really got a champion's welcome when he showed up to the arena and afterwards. Like, those fans in attendance knew what he did and the risk that he took, and sort of the specialness of that moment. And I was happy for him.
I definitely think that was dope, dude. And it was good for him to get that. I feel like more than anything, the biggest thing that popped out to me is it's dope for Ige to kind of get that recognition, because like you said, I think him and Lopez both coming out of that fight are going to be they both are going to have to be in a better spot. I don't know necessarily as far as a name who's going to be next for each one of them, but I would say from the looks of things, it looks like both guys are going to get hooked up. And Dan Ige even said it on MMA Today with Andreas and them. He was like, let's just say I made more money in that night than I've ever made in any of the other fights that he's made. So as long as he got compensated for that, I feel like good for him. But all respect.
With that in mind, all fighters should just not accept fights. They should just wait for get the call 3 hours before a pay-per-view, so you can get the biggest fight day of your, biggest fight purse of your career. So I'm sorry, Dana White, I can't take a fight, but if you need me on 3 hours notice, I got you. It's just going to cost you $500,000 because I got you in a pickle. Like, ridiculous that is. Dan Ige, everything he's given to the sport, like, that was the biggest payday of his career.
You're not wrong.
He did a favor for the UFC on 3 hours notice. Oh,
yeah.
Well, but again, I'm happy for the guy. He absolutely deserves it. Fantastic individual. Obviously, I know that gym better than most. So yeah.
We've talked financials and stuff with the UFC a lot on this episode. So I'm on this one, jump performance between both of these guys. Like you say, Kyle, I feel like both of them really did not lose anything in the pecking order at all. And if anything, with Dan Ige stepping up on late notice, showing that he still had the better cardio, was able to win that third round pretty convincingly. It was really a situation where, like, he lost the fight, but it was like one of those Nate Diaz moments where he was like, but he was so close to getting the finish. So it's both guys continue to gain. I feel like, if anything, maybe a little bit of the steam gets lost off the Diego Lopez because of that third round. And that's what I worry when you see moments like this, where you just see somebody stepping in, the weight classes change, like they're, this may be unprecedented, but like we've seen crazy stuff happen like this, and it doesn't always work out for the person that was originally on weight.
Right.
Right.
No, I think this worked out well. I think they both came out better than they did going in, and I think there's understanding from the MMA community as well.
Yeah.
All right. So I know we're running short on time with you, Big Mac. So the last thing I got to ask you, and we'll keep this short, and then I got a couple wrestling things I wanted to get with you with. But with that being said, Alex Pereira, hot damn it. This guy has had a 17-month run like nobody I've ever seen in the time that I've been watching MMA. To come in,
amazing,
win 2 titles, just step up and just be knocking fools left and right. What are your thoughts on what we saw from Pereira? And do you really think that there's any chance? Do you think that there's any chance that we actually could see him move up to heavyweight?
Yeah. Well, I think money talks, right? Especially in this sport and especially in this company. I think Pereira has shown that he's all about taking challenges, even when they're at his detriment in terms of time, right? Like he'll put things on the line with a disregard for his own career safety, his own physical safety, and his own career safety. He doesn't seem to, I think, and this is partly why he's so popular with fans and even growing, is he doesn't seem to move with intent in a good way. Nothing's calculated with him. He's very genuine, and he kind of just takes challenges as they come. And for the most part, he knocks those challenges, down and out, and he does it in flying colors. So I think under the right circumstances, a fight at heavyweight, it makes a lot of sense. And I heard Dana at the dais trying to, give his best reasons. Well, you got to understand, these guys, they cut to 205. Yeah, I know how weight cutting works. I also know Alex Pereira is huge.
He was 230 on the night of the fight.
Yeah, which is pretty standard. I mean, that's what John Jones was. I mean, they're like the same size. Like they're virtually, shout out Mike Goldberg, they're virtually identical.
Yeah.
They have a very similar body style. You know what I mean? And man, if you could make any fight in the UFC right now, and it is one of the greatest fantasy bookings in UFC history, it's just this. It's the same logic as making Max Holloway and Conor McGregor for the BMF title. It just makes too much sense from every angle. It makes too much sense. Look at Alex Pereira and John Jones, the greatest fighter of all time versus a fighter that I've never seen anything what Poatan's doing. I've never seen the rise that he's done. And if he were to, and I know he's a huge underdog in a potential matchup between John Jones, but imagine if he went up to heavyweight and won the heavyweight title off of John Jones. You're looking at he arguably takes the mantle of greatest fighter of all time from John.
I mean, I don't think it's even arguable at that point to win championships at 3 different weight classes. I don't even know if anybody else has done
Maybe
that.
it would be like in 3 years. So yeah, a 15-year career as opposed to a 3-year career. We would have to wait for Pereira to finish his career. But yeah, it would be the craziest thing I've ever seen in combat sports history. Him getting 3 different belts at 3 different weight classes. And again, it's not boxing where it's separated by 4 pounds. It's just 15 pounds. Mm-hmm. This would be like capturing what belts in like 15 different weight classes in boxing. You've never seen anything like it. It's just not, it doesn't compute. I don't know how the fight would go. It's the money fight. How do you not do it? Sorry, Stipe, you haven't fought in 4 years. Nobody wants to see that fight. We all know what's going to happen. I'm sorry. You're a great ambassador. It really sucks. Like, it's worse than the Chandler situation. I'm not neglecting that, right? It also sucks for Tom Aspinall, but you're young. I'm sorry, but like the MMA gods, and you can say that, hey, let Jones and Aspinall fight and the winner gets Pereira, but I don't care as much about Aspinall and Pereira as much as I do John Jones. You know what I mean? Like, if you're going to waste that bullet, if you're going to use that fight, if you're going to use a loss on either John Jones or Poatan, either one of them are going to take an L. I want it to be against each other. And I want it to be with the title of greatest fighter of all time on the line, and also the third belt for Poatan on the line. I want to see history. I want to see something that I've never seen before. I want to see something that I'll never see again, because if we get that fight happening, that's 15 years. I was at John Jones's first fight at UFC 84 in Minneapolis, Minnesota. I'll never forget it. You know what I mean? And I was at so many after that, including his title win and a few fights, most of his title defenses after that. To think about what it took to get to the John Jones that we're living in right now, to put all of that on the line against what I've just watched Poatan do in 2 years. Like, what? I can't even. I don't even really have words for that, and I know it's my job. But give me that. Give me. Go Batista. Give me what I want. That's where I'm at with that. Give me what I want.
John Jones comes out in a wheelchair. Fucking
Give me what I want. Let me know.
Yeah. Damn, I'm with it. I don't even care. Let's get weird.
What is the timeline for John Jones right now as of getting a fight? Is there?
Nobody really knows. I don't know, to be honest.
Yeah, nobody knows. It's just it looks like November at MSG, but look at the way he's talking. Look at the non-committal sort of everything. Like, they don't know. Nobody knows. Nobody knows.
I'm just saying, if that shit can happen, it would by far be one of the craziest things I've ever seen in MMA. I'm 100% with it. At this point, I'm with you. I just want to see as much big shit happen as it can. And I mean, at this point, with how big Pereira has gotten and how he's picking people apart, I mean, I could see it. But I can't let you get out of here just talking MMA. So I got a couple of wrestling things I got to bring your way. But before I do that, Shout out to the other sponsors of the show, and these people are actually giving me a microphone while I watch people beat the shit out of each other. You've got our other sponsor, Mitten Muay Thai, which, as you can see here from these clips from the last fight, somebody's going to get knocked the fuck out. I'm on the microphone. You can check it out wherever you watch stuff. Spectation Sports, most likely, maybe affiliates. But make sure you check out Mitten Muay Thai coming back at you August 9th. I am ready to see somebody else get knocked the fuck out.
I know I say that all the time, but that is such a great clip. Whoever does their clips, shout out to you, because that's beautiful.
Shout out to Phil and Mitten Muay Thai. I'm definitely looking forward to seeing somebody get knocked the fuck out, and I'm looking forward to be on commentary for that one as well. But we got to take it to the world of pro wrestling, because we had a lot of pro wrestling go down as well. You had AEW Forbidden Door. So we've got some things that we got to talk about off the rip. I know you didn't get to watch the show from start to finish. I did. It was a really good show. Another AEW show in which, obviously everybody's always talking about how long AEW pay-per-views are. But what I liked out of this pay-per-view is that you have so many different things that are like talking points going off of this. Swerve versus Ospreay was fucking badass. So, first of all, that lived up to what I hoped it would, J-Bone. I don't know about what you thought, but I like that. I don't know what's next for Swerve, but I don't know, man. To me, it still seems like all roads lead to Ospreay somehow being in the world title picture for All In when we get to England. But what do you think of what we saw from Swerve and Ospreay, and what do you think's next for them both?
Well, I mean, I loved it. I think that I don't think Swerve gets the respect that he deserves in the community because he just hasn't had the matches, right? Like he hasn't had these big marquee, big tent matches. Obviously, like we saw at Forbidden Door and Double or Nothing, he's building his credibility right now. Like I think he's the perfect example of someone who needs the belt because he's someone who deserves it, right? We saw Floyd Mayweather here in Vegas at Double or Nothing. Like there's a huge character there, and there's a huge talent there that's able to deliver in massive, massive ways, right? So I loved the idea, and Ospreay talking about how he wanted to do that match and he wanted to do it at Forbidden Door because everybody thought that, Swerve was, or that Ospreay would win. It was this huge sort of boost to Swerve, and I love seeing it. And I mean, you saw the match. It was 5-star, 6-star match. It was as good as it gets. You know what I'm saying? And Swerve needs that. Like I said, he's building his momentum. He's building his story now. He's building his championship pedigree, and I'm here for it. It's great. It's refreshing. We all know what Ospreay can do. You know what I mean? And hopefully this is the start of a great sort of back and forth with those two. I don't know when it's going to happen, but that they're going to be linked to each other for the coming years, and it's great. It's great for AEW. It's great for pro wrestling. I loved the match. It was awesome.
Shout out to Swerve and shout out to Ospreay, who's really stepped up on the mic. J-Bone, what'd you think about this one?
Well, I'm with Big Mac, dude. Like we always talk about AEW and how they build stars. How can they build stars without having that, that WWE fix in it, right? It's going to be hard because a lot of guys come from there and they started there. But Swerve is a guy, if you could strap that rocket to his back in 2-3 years, they're going to forget about WWE, dude. Yeah. It's going to be an AEW homegrown guy. And I think right now he needs those matches, and we're getting that right now. He just beat arguably the best wrestler in the world. That's a huge thing. Yeah. You know what I mean? So going forward, I think his matches are going to get bigger. That championship's going to become more for him. He's going to keep building on top of that. The match itself was a banger. I thought it was great. And I don't care how long those shows are. I know we talk about it all the time. Oh, I could watch wrestling from the time I wake up to the time I go to bed. I don't care.
And again, it's not like the WWE, you're getting one pay-per-view every month, right? Yeah. AEW spaces theirs out more with more storytelling in between. So when you get these culminations of these big matches, they mean more. So I get it. I've been to a lot of them. They can run a little bit long. But again, it's not – these are two different companies that handle business in two different ways, for better and for worse in some cases, right? One does one a little bit better, the other does something a little better. There's, I don't even really enjoy comparing them. because there's just
they're different products.
right, and we have enough room for everybody to find what they like. I mean, AAA, CMLL, like TNA. I mean, there's just so many ROH. Even I mean, there's so many different options. MLW, if you're watching on YouTube or whatever it is. Like, I mean, there's so many different ways to enjoy the art of pro wrestling, and I don't think this is a hot take that just. The scene has never been better. And then part of that is due to AEW rising and lifting up the indie scene. Mance Warner being on Dynamite like a couple years ago or whatever it was from GCW, right? Like Nick Gage having the match with the pizza cutter against Jericho. Like there's so much stuff happening in the business, and AEW is in part responsible for that. But Michigan, Indiana, Las Vegas during double, it doesn't matter. The indie scene is just, it's massive. So you can enjoy the art of pro wrestling in ways that you never could before, at least not in our lifetime since the territories. I didn't live the territories, right? I don't know exactly what that was like having like Dusty Rhodes come through or Ric Flair come through and, like the excitement that would bring, but it just feels bigger now. It feels like there's more options. It feels like there's good pro wrestling happening in damn near every state, damn near every weekend. And how is that a bad thing?
No, exactly.
It's not.
We say it all the time. Twitter is just such a toxic space. It's seriously mostly used for the wrong reasons.
Yeah,
nowadays,
and it's a bunch of people whose opinions shouldn't be heard.
Yeah,
that's the one thing. Like I battle with like content and the way things are made popular. At the end of the day, I'm glad that the Mr. Beasts of the world and that whoever, right, that streamer, Logan Paul, Jake Paul, whoever it may be, that people can rise from nothing and the people determine, right, how popular they are and what they like. That's a good thing. Like normal, ordinary people making money without gatekeepers is a good thing. But I do think back to a time when like A&Rs existed, right? And there were gatekeepers and there were people that told you, yo, this is dope. You're going to like it. Like I saw Pulp Fiction in the first time in theaters. That went over my head. I didn't know. Like I what am I watching? Like this, it didn't resonate with me, but someone kept, yo, this is dope. This is good. This is art. You will like it. And eventually it's like, yeah, it is. Right. I think, Twitter and just social media in general has become like a wasteland of people that haven't been vetted. They haven't been put in any sort of work or, time to have a credible opinion. They don't know how powerful an opinion or words can be. So they just throw so much stuff at a board to see if it sticks. So many takes. And that's like hot take culture, right? I've got to have something to say. I've got to have an opinion. No, you really don't. Sometimes you can just shut the fuck up and enjoy the art that people are creating for you. And I don't know if there's anywhere that's more prevalent where I feel like, shut the fuck up more than wrestling. I had people, I mean, I'm not going to name names, but people that looked at me in really powerful positions and, people that have done a lot more in life in the business of professional wrestling that, would ask me the same thing. What have you done? And this is after a decade plus in journalism and sports writing and media and like going to college and, like really late. And when they said it to me, it's like, you know what? You're not really wrong. You know what I mean? Like you're certainly entitled to have that opinion, but I think we need more of that. We need more of people not listening to stupid people. Understand, right, that the internet wrestling community is not real. Social media is not real. The people telling you that you're ugly doesn't fucking matter. The people that are telling you that you're not talented and that your opinion doesn't matter, they don't matter. The only thing that matters are the people that, you surround yourself with, the people that you love, your circle. And yeah, I mean, when more important people, if a WWE Hall of Famer tells you that you're a fucking idiot and that, you know what I mean, you should look at something differently, okay, then maybe that's who you listen to. Yeah. But until that happens, shut the fuck up and, keep your head down and try not to have bad opinions. Just try to keep them to yourself because, again, the echo chamber, J-Bone, is crazy.
It is. And at work, we talk about this all the time because we talk wrestling and the dirt sheets and the bullshit on Twitter. Like, there's these guys that are younger than me, and I'm not going to say I'm old. I'm old enough, right? I'm 36.
Yeah.
But there's like a generational gap between me and the guys at work, and they come in and they talk about these content creators that do live Twitch stuff, and they listen to them. They follow them on Twitter.
Yeah,
and like,
I have no idea
who
talking
do you listen? Like when it comes to wrestling, who do you think like has the mind? I'm like, dude, I'm a Mark Henry guy and like a bully guy. And to be honest, I still listen to what Bischoff says because those are the guys that grew up on.
They've done it.
Those are the minds in wrestling that I like to pick. You know what I mean? Like I always say that before. If I could sit down with somebody in wrestling, it wouldn't be the new popular guy. It'd be a guy like Chris Jericho. It'd be a guy like Mark Henry. Like I want to know the insights and what you think.
Do you know how easy it is to get people to believe you? Look at all the cults that we have in this country and in this world. All you have to do is speak with confidence and have a modicum of believability, and people will follow and believe you, even when you have no idea what you're talking about. And it's unfortunate. So I think there'll be a reckoning with that. I don't think the whole influencer content creator thing will last forever because and maybe it will, maybe that's the new normal. Maybe that's what TV shows are going to be. Maybe that's how entertainment's going to be consumed. But there's Renaissance and there's Dark Ages. There's Renaissance and there's Dark Ages. There's peaks and there's valleys. I think we're living a bit of a dark age right now as we try to figure out what all of this new information and what all of this content means. And it's just been blasted in our face, and we're just kind of navigating the waters. So it's very confusing to older world people like me and you and Kyle, who have come from a world where no, that person's an authority figure. They've done it, and I may not agree with what they say all the time, whether it be teachers or presidents or parents or whatever the case may be. But they've put in their time. I do think there has to be a healthy sort of turning back and saying, who gives a fuck what kids think? Yeah. Like who gives a fuck with what uninitiated think? Like if you haven't put in the time, if you haven't done it, if all that you've got is a nice 4K camera and opinion and a delivery that seems believable, if that's all you've got, I'm sorry. I mean, this may come off as, again, gatekeeping, an old man yelling at the sun. It's whatever. Then so
get off my damn lawn.
There's so many people on the internet with so many opinions, and the vast majority of them mean nothing. And that comes at me. I had my first Twitter account, 2009, right? I had my first YouTube in 2010. But like growing up on the internet and having people, when I go after Barstool Sports, or wrote an article for Yahoo about Joe Rogan being a racist when he said that Dada 5000 OD'd on fried chicken and grape soda, right? Like I wrote a piece on, and his army went after me. Or when again Barstool goes after me, when maybe it's the armor that I built throughout that time, but I realized long ago not to give a single fuck what any of these people think about me, because not one in 20 years has ever came up to me and been like, "You're Ryan Mckinnell. Yeah, fuck you. You're an idiot. You don't know what you're talking about." You would never say that to my face. You're a coward. Your opinion means nothing. So it's not to say like don't feel like I feel for anybody who's been bullied or anybody who's been dragged on the internet and tried to deal with that. I'm not saying don't feel. I'm just trying to give you my perspective to maybe help you, to make you realize that these people don't matter. I'm not saying your feelings are invalid or that, you know what I'm saying, to not say like you're lesser. That's not what I'm saying, or I'm better than you. It's just as society,
don't put so much stock into stuff.
As society, we can do better at not propping up unimportant people, and that goes for all the vastless, countless opinions that and it's really bad in the internet wrestling community because all of us sort of live on the internet. Like it's such an internet-based sort of form of entertainment because so much of it exists on the internet, and that's like a lot of other things. It's just this, because it's niche. It feels louder and it feels more pervasive and vile. And some of the shit people say, because again, these are the athletes are risking their lives. People that really know pro wrestling, we know how bad this business can be and what these people risk. And it's their health, it's their livelihood, it's everything. So it's very serious.
Well, speaking of somebody,
a lot of people use TikTok. They're like, you got to follow this guy on TikTok. He's got like 400,000 followers, but he hates everything WWE. I'm like, you guys ever heard of like Jim Cornette? Like, this is what I listen to. Like, what? Like,
and at the end of the day, those same TikTokers and those same TikTokers and so influencers, they're just regurgitating what they heard from the Bischoffs and the Cornettes. And I'm like, I have to step back and take inventory. How much am I regurgitating from sports talk radio that I heard in the 90s that I did? But a lot of it is backed up by also a 20-year career of me doing stuff. So it's like, none of us are that original. None of us are that unique. You know what I mean? You just,
I think the biggest problem is we still have a lot of people who can't just sit back and enjoy it.
Yeah.
You know, they have, like you said, they have to say something, even if it means nothing and it's shit.
All right. Find your tribe, though. Yeah. Find your tribe of people who are chill and cool and just, vibe with them, Block.
Agreed. Long live pro wrestling, baby.
Long live pro wrestling, dude. We got a lot of stuff left to come. We had the return of the doctor. Dr. Britt Baker has come back, and now we got to see what's going to happen with her coming out now with what we saw with Mercedes. Yeah. I think all three of us can kind of agree. We need to make her a heel and just let's leave it that way because, man, they were booing the fuck out of her. They were booing the fuck out of her at Forbidden Door.
Yeah, but she's not. I don't know how she's. I mean, yes, there is only one move. It is heel.
Yeah.
Now, I kind of reminds me of Cody when he was in AEW, where it's just like maybe I don't think there's any question she would be better off in the WWE system with less creative control. She has too much creative control. She wants to be a good guy, and it's backfiring. I have never understood Sasha Banks, Mercedes Moné. I have never. She's fine. I hope she makes all the money in the world. If you want to call her a GOAT, I guess. I do not believe her when she speaks on a microphone. She has a weird Valley Girl inflection where she's like, and I'm just like, man, I can't get past it. And it's my own weird thing. And I try not to. I didn't talk about it a lot when I was on Busted Open. I don't try to drag anybody like that. Like, it's just my personal. And it's also a young black woman. So I don't want to seem like I'm just going after a girl and I'm just like, oh, if you like her, fine. I think for me, the issue is that all these people call her a GOAT and call her the greatest women's wrestler to ever live. And if that were the case, this wouldn't be happening. If that were the case, I feel like I would see it. I don't see it with Mercedes. I do think she's better as a heel. I think that's the only thing that AEW can do right now to salvage this paycheck that they're paying her. I think there's very little interest. So we'll see how the Britt Baker stuff plays out because I also think Britt is better as a heel. That women's locker room, man, I don't know what they need to really get things going. I think Toni Storm, is the best thing they've got. I think the most original, you know what I'm saying? The most original homegrown sort of character. I know she was in WWE before. I'm just saying the timeless Tony is definitely sort of their thing. And it's a fun story. It's good that Britt's back. I hope they figure out a good story to tell. I hope it involves Mercedes. I think Mercedes is capable of putting on the best matches in the world on any given night, right? I just don't think she can sell the best matches in the world. On the microphone, I think there's a disconnect. I really want her to find her footing in AEW because they're spending a lot of money on her and there's a lot of attention on her. And if she does fail and it doesn't work out, that's just more ammo for stupid people to say AEW is this or AEW is that. And I don't like that. You know what I mean? I want to see this art thrive and be as big and as beautiful and as successful as possible. Yeah. So, yeah, man.
Hell yeah, man. Well, we've covered the gamut. You got Money in the Bank this weekend. Do you got a quick pick for that? Do you got a pick on who's going to win men's and women's?
Remind me who's in the match again. I'm like 2 weeks behind.
I got you. So we've got in the men's
Drew.
match. Okay, you got it.
Yeah. Well, let me see. We got Drew. We got Jey Uso.
Yeah.
Who's else? Andrade, I believe, is in it. LA Knight. I'm missing two, Kyle.
Well, I think the two names you mentioned, I think obviously everyone's leaning.
I got you covered. It's you've got that's the 6-man. You've got Jay, you've got Andrade, you've got Carmelo, you've got Drew, you've got LA Knight, you've got Chad Gable.
Yeah,
Chad Gable.
I think LA Knight and Drew are the ones that jump off the page. Drew doesn't need it though, right? Because we know. Whatever's happening with him and CM Punk, right? The back and forth, and whenever I think Punk is nearing getting cleared to be able to go out there and actually start competing. That story doesn't need a title on the line. It doesn't need it in the background. It doesn't need it in any way, shape, or form. I don't need Drew and CM Punk to have that. I think someone who does need it, and someone who does need a title, and someone who needs to be, that next step is LA Knight. So if I were the WWE and I was booking this, that would be my focus. And you see how much attention. I know he's cooled off a little bit, but what's a better way, right, to inject some life into that, and then give him the briefcase, have him dangle that. Even if you don't have something planned for him exactly, that gives you a bit of a stopgap. You can kind of play with that. You can kind of have some maneuverability, if you will, if you're Triple H and you're creative.
Yeah, I agree. I think the pick for me, it's actually kind of hard. Like if I'm leaning like Jey Uso, I just don't know where that would go as far with the bloodline civil war coming up, and that's going to be a hotbed for attention. But then you got Drew, and also he doesn't need it with the Punk situation. Yeah, he could win it. He could win it, and maybe he could try to cash it in the same night, and Punk is the guy that screws him over out of it. Maybe. That would add a lot of fuel to that fire. But then we're disregarding the whole Money in the Bank thing for no reason, So
it's good that we have the option, because Money in the Bank has definitely taken over Survivor Series as the fourth of the big four, as far as I'm concerned. Now, I think that is determined by the year. I think this year's Survivor Series is going to be nuts, right? Because of the bloodline story and everything that's happening with that. But Money in the Bank has ironed out its place in the summer. It's right there with SummerSlam. And it really, it creates a really good sort of wrinkle in terms of storytelling and what they're able to do. And it keeps everyone talking, right? Every time around this year, Money in the Bank becomes a big talking point, around the sport, around the business. So it's definitely going to be interesting to see. I got to get caught up. I'm like I said, a couple weeks behind, but I've got to watch Friday. Because I heard everything that happened with Heyman getting put through the table.
Dude, that was savage.
Yeah, and I can't wait. So I didn't hear anything about Raw last night, so I'm still in the dark about that, which I'm glad about, but I'm going to get caught up here. I don't want to say tonight, because, boy, in about 4.5 hours, Axel Foley is back. And you're tripping. You're tripping if you think I'm doing anything other than at midnight tonight watching Beverly Hills Cop 4. And, bro, it could be – and I know they drag me all the time on the show about, like, I like anything and I'm a sucker for nostalgia. It's absolutely true. It's absolutely true. This has like the Indiana Jones effect for me. This could be a 3 out of 10. I'm going to tell you it's a 6.5. Just full disclosure. Like, it could be the worst crap you have ever seen, and it's Eddie Murphy back as Axel Foley. I don't give a shit. Yeah. I'm here for it. I got snacks. Got some soda. Let's go.
I get that same thing with Chili Peppers music, bro. I don't care. I don't care if it sucks. Anything that Frusciante touches, I'm like,
bro, I'm with you. And also,
I need double albums.
And they don't really put out bad music.
No,
they really
I
don't.
get shit out. They're like, it's dad rock, dude. Like, whatever.
Yeah,
bro.
but we're also getting older. I mean, I'm a Metallica fan. You guys are Metallica fans. Like,
hey guy, look at that.
Yeah, I see you rocking it. August 11th and 13th, Soldier Field. I will be there.
Bro, that concert was the best concert I've ever been to, and I've been to a lot of concerts. So I'm just saying, fucking enjoy. But dude, we've flapped our gums for a hot minute. We got Money in the Bank coming this weekend. We've talked about Forbidden Door. We've talked about UFC 303. Big Mac, let them know where they can check you out during the week, and we'll definitely have to do another one of these soon. And when I come to Vegas, we got to link up.
Oh, yeah. I'll be seeing you in April no matter what for WrestleMania.
I already know.
I can't wait for Mania in Vegas, and probably The Rock and Roman for the blood. I mean, that is going to be such an insane weekend. But yeah, man, at Ryan Mckinnell on Twitter. It's just my name. It's very easy to find. I'm not verified anymore because I'll never give Elon Musk money. But for those of you who do, more power to you. Hopefully one day they'll return that verified badge for me. But yeah, at Ryan Mckinnell. And you can always find me on the Sirius XM airwaves, Fight Nation, channel 156. MMA Today is now 5 days a week, man. Monday through Friday, 3 hours of original programming every single day from 9 to noon Pacific time. Like, that is, we were 1 day a week 10 years ago. You know what I'm saying? So, like, to see what we have grown into, we didn't have a channel. We didn't even have a channel to call our own. Now it's busted open. Now it's At the Fights. It's boxing, MMA, pro wrestling. It is. It's been really, really cool to be a part of. It's my 10th year. Like, I'm so proud of what we've done over there. So if you're not a subscriber, listen, I'm not going to sit here and say, like, I get it. It's an investment. Like I say it all the time. It's like $10 depending on what plan you get in. It's $10 a month, right? And it's like, what do you get more value out of, right? An HBO Max subscription or a Sirius XM subscription? And like, I'm not saying one way or the other. I'm just saying it's huge competition out there as like to what you can spend your monthly subscriptions on. So anybody who is a subscriber, you guys I know have always been supporters. I appreciate it so much. The people listening to your show that are subscribers, I appreciate you. And if you're thinking about it, or if you just listening to me here, but you don't have the money to go and subscribe, I completely understand. Like we appreciate everything. We appreciate you just tweeting us, stopping by with messages, seeing us at live events, whatever the case may be. But it's definitely a community, and we appreciate it, man. I appreciate you guys too.
Oh yeah.
Hell yeah, man. As always, it's a pleasure to have you on. Like I said, shout out to our sponsors, Potter's Tree Service. Shout out to Mitten Muay Thai. Make sure you come out and watch somebody get knocked out. And in the meantime and in between time, make sure you hit that subscribe button. Don't blow your fingers off on 4th of July, and catch us back here next week for more knockouts and 3 counts. Peace.